Welcome to Informed Dissent. This is your news of the week for February 21st, 2026. Breaking news: the UK puberty blocker trial has been paused. On February 19th, it was announced that the Pathways puberty blocker trial in the United Kingdom has been paused after regulatory agencies asked researchers to increase the minimum age for participation to 14, citing known fertility concerns. In the US, public opinion has shifted. Voters have moved rapidly on youth gender policies. New polling from The Argument surveyed 3,003 registered voters early in February. 62% opposed youth gender surgeries, even when there was parental consent and medical recommendations. 52% supported bathroom policies requiring people to use facilities that match their biological sex. And 60% want K through 12 athletes competing by sex. This was even Harrison voters, who are parents, were backing sex-based sports, 45 to 34%. The polling also suggests that the divide has been increasingly between the base of the Democratic Party and its leadership, with voters showing more caution on youth gender policy than many institutional positions reflect. The AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the Endocrine Society sue the Federal Trade Commission. The American Academy of Pediatrics and the Endocrine Society both submitted their own independent lawsuits suing the Federal Trade Commission to block investigations into their promotion of pediatric gender interventions, both claiming that the investigations violate their First Amendment free speech rights. Sure. Rhode Island hockey rink shooting, and yet another shooting in recent weeks. In Rhode Island, a trans-identified man shot and killed his ex-wife and son at a youth hockey game before turning the gun on himself. The day before, he had posted online stating that if people kept, quote, bashing trans people, they should not, quote, wonder why we go berserk. Coming up, our guest today is Jennifer Sey. Jennifer Sey is an American author, filmmaker, business executive, and retired national champion gymnast. She won the 1986 U.S. Women's National Championship and is the 7-time national team member. She was the first gymnast to speak up about the abuses in the sport in her 2008 memoir titled Chalked Up. She went on to produce the 2020 Emmy-award winning documentary Athlete A, which was on Netflix, exposing the crimes of Larry Nassar and the abuses of athletes rampant in the Olympic movement. Sey began working at Levi Strauss Co. in 1999, rising to the chief marketing officer and then brand president. In 2020, she was the only C-suite executive to speak out against COVID lockdowns and school closures. She is now the founder and CEO of her own clothing brand, XXXY, the only athletic brand to stand up for women's sports and female athletes. Jennifer Sey is a friend of the pod, and we are so pleased to have her on this episode. So, on to the show. Hello, and welcome to Informed Dissent. Cori, I've been waiting all week to do this. I'm so excited. Do you know those, you're going to leave Twitter soon, but you know on X how people are like, tell me you're from the Midwest without telling me you're from the Midwest?
Yeah.
Okay, can I show you my new couch pillows?
Yeah, let's see your new couch pillows.
Okay, this is the first one.
Yeah, you're from the Midwest.
And this is the second one. And then this one.
For people only listening, just count your blessings because she's showing you all the new cat St. Patrick's Day pillows.
It's obviously she went to TJ Maxx and raided their seasonal home decor department.
I love seasonal couch pillows. They're like my favorite thing. And I've been waiting all week to show you these. So
they're wonderful.
Thank you.
They're all St. Patrick's Day themed.
They're all St. Patrick's Day cats. I think we skipped over Easter. I think Easter is supposed to be next, but I went right. I don't know when Easter is. How have you been?
Okay. How about you? How about Lauren?
I'm
Lauren?
great. Recently started a project to kind of overhaul the children's gross ass bathroom.
You know, I would take out the walls and anything touching the walls.
Yeah, well, we're just painting
Mm.
and
And you're
taking
caulking.
caulking, painting, doing some minor repairs, getting the crappy flooring up. So I'm great because I'm good when I have a project to work on.
And it's
Same.
spring. It's spring. So it was 70 degrees yesterday. How warm is it in Indiana?
See, we're definitely from the Midwest because we're talking about the weather.
Mhm.
It
I'm
was
sure our
70
listeners
degrees.
are enthralled right now too.
Yeah, this is the best part.
Okay.
What are we talking about for real this week? I'm just
Okay.
gonna jump us forward.
I wanted to tell you both two news stories this week, and then I wanted Lauren to share a really weird Facebook find that she had yesterday.
Yeah. You
Okay.
go first.
Okay, I'll go first. So, I think we should start with what I believe are the three pillars upholding pediatric gender medicine.
The three pillars upholding pediatric. So why it still continues to exist?
Yes,
Okay, all right. What are those?
I believe those are WPATH, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the Endocrine Society.
You think that all of those pillars, if they didn't exist, that there wouldn't be doctors doing this stuff?
I think that without WPATH documents and without the Endocrine Society 2017 guidelines and without the 2018 Jason Rafferty statement, I do think a lot of hospitals would not have opened programs.
Hmm.
But that's from my own personal experience because where I worked opened after the 2017 endocrine guidelines and the 2018 American Academy of Pediatrics Jason Rafferty statement.
So they had
I mean,
the imprimatur of these medical organizations, and that gave them the confidence that they could go do these procedures on youth.
I realize that's very biased towards the medical side because that's kind of ignoring psychiatry, psychology, all of the mental health orgs. But I think from the medical side, those are the three orgs holding it up.
I think that's what's I agree with you in that I think that it's holding it up in terms of legitimacy, in terms of people being able to point to them and say that, well, it must be legitimate because these medical associations back it, but I feel like even if they didn't, I do think we've gotten to a point where people have become so such true believers that I do still think that people are going to be doing this for a while until there are actual consequences to being caught doing it.
Within hospital settings, like with doctors billing for and continuing to practice.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that if we got the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Endocrine Society to change their guidelines, I think that would go a long way in stopping it, but I don't know that I think it would definitely stymie or slow it down to almost a crawl because people could no longer say that it is in any way legitimate. But I do think that you're still gonna have there's still gonna have to be a social shift.
Well, let me tell you the news story that I found really important this week, and then we can kind of hash it out. So, I think the two of you are familiar with the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission in
Yes.
DC, and it being one of the major kind of government institutions that is going after the legitimacy and coming after these practices. Do you think that's fair to say? You look inquisitive.
They're investigating at least.
They're investigating. Okay. So the FTC asked the American Academy of Pediatrics, they didn't ask. I guess ask is not the right word in law. They kind of said, we need all of your documents around how you came up with your guidelines for 2018 from the AAP and 2017 for endocrine. And they said this as a legal filing. We need you to give us your stuff. So then on Tuesday of this week, the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Endocrine Society filed separate lawsuits in federal court in DC challenging all of the demands the FTC made last month. And they both filed their own response. My first hypothetical question is, after what we saw come out of Alabama, I really hope that they've at least learned now to not have an email paper trail where they're like emailing back and forth and saying, hey, when are you filing your lawsuit against the government? Hey, when are you doing it? I hope that they've at least learned how to use Signal or WhatsApp to start communicating.
I don't. I hope they continue to be stupid. But go
Well,
on.
the two of them filed federal lawsuits saying that they have a free speech right that the FTC is infringing upon, and that the government is abridging their free speech because they're in a disagreement with the Trump administration. One of the quotes from the AAP's lawsuit said, unable to prevail in the marketplace of ideas, the FTC has resorted to burdening the AAP with an intrusive and expensive investigation that is unconstitutional. I was just, I don't know, the concept that we are in a marketplace of ideas as where this fight is right now, and that they're claiming that the FTC is not prevailing.
I am
At the
confused
same-
how this is a violation of First Amendment rights because the FTC is asking them for the information that they have that brought them to the conclusion to support gender affirming care, right? So the FTC is saying, what evidence are you basing this on, right? That's correct. That's what they're asking them for.
Yes, but the AAP is claiming that this is an infringement on their speech now. And they were citing, because I went to the documentation in their lawsuit back, and they basically, it's so interesting that this just keeps coming back to politics in the weirdest way, but they were citing like the language that the Trump administration used in its executive orders, saying things like, the fight against the transit, like just quoting Trump and the way that he like framed things. I don't know. It was just, to me, I just found this. They won't even hand over their documents. They won't even show how they came to this. They're gonna, they're just gonna go into like a decade of lawsuit fights.
Well, do they have the money to sustain themselves? I mean, because this is the thing, the
Oh,
AAP is propped up, and the Endocrine Society are propped up by membership dues, correct?
oh, no.
Oh.
Oh, no. The American Academy of Pediatrics, a shit ton of their money comes from a formula I mean, this was like the way that used to be described, but a formula company saying, put your seal of approval. Like they will put their seal and they will approve product that people sell. I mean, yes, their members pay dues, but these are huge,
Right.
huge.
How long does that seal of approval, how long is that worth anything
Oh,
in the if it comes out that they're just refusing to hand over information about how they make their guidelines? I mean, this is desperate. It seems desperate.
well, I just thought it was interesting. At the same time, we saw this polling come out that I know Leora wrote a City Journal piece on, basically reiterating yet again that Democrats don't support this. Republicans don't support this. There's a nobody's supporting this.
Yeah. But at this point, it's not really, I don't think, for especially the AAP, I don't think it's about whether they're supported. It's about whether they can defend themselves against the lawsuits that are coming their way.
Well, the thing that I found really just amazing also was that they filed this lawsuit for free speech. They are still defending Jason Rafferty from 2018. We're in 2026. I feel like if I wrote a really shitty paper that many years ago that like everything went to hell, why are they still defending him?
Again, they kind of have to. They have to. They can't just say, they cannot, they have backed themselves into such a corner with this. They can't just say, we messed up.
They could put out a systematic review of evidence that they promised and say, look, we are doing scientific rigor and we've seen that the evidence is now not as strong and we are slowly changing our guidelines. Why can't they do that?
Well,
I
the
still think that
leadership
would,
doesn't want it, do they?
I don't I don't know. That's where we're at now. The Endocrine Society and the AAP are fighting over free speech. You too don't seem as enthused as I was by this. So,
I mean, I think it just illustrates what we already know is that these people, they are willing to die on this hill. These institutions are willing to die on this hill. Let them.
okay, so let's couple that with what you found on Facebook. That's the hill they're wanting to die on.
Yeah, it was completely insane. I think I sent this to you guys, but Cori's super smart and doesn't have Facebook.
Or have you ever had Facebook?
Yeah, a long, long time ago. It's been more than 10 years since I've turned off my Facebook.
And also,
Yeah.
are you serious about leaving Twitter?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll. Anyway, we'll talk about that later.
So this page, it's a public group. It's called All Trans Men Know Each Other. There are almost 63,000 members. And for some reason, it just one of the posts trying to get me to join this page, probably because I'm a butch lesbian, came into my timeline, and I was like, wow, this is, hold on, let's see if we can find the post because it
Wait
was
a minute.
about,
Do you really think that that's how Meta, like that's how Facebook works? That it was feeding you that into your
I
algorithm?
don't, yeah, so I don't think Facebook knows what to do with me because I get a bunch of trans stuff and I get a bunch of like lesbian stuff. Like I don't think they really know what to do with me. I think I've messed up their algorithm really bad. Um, but anyway, this post comes across and it's something like, I'm trying to find it here.
Okay, I think I can. Let me, while you're looking, let me give you a brief background on my own Facebook experience. So, when I became a public whistleblower, I had no social media at all. And that was back when you could do a little bit of like, do you remember when on X you used to be able to not have an account but like look?
Yeah.
And now I don't think you can do that anymore though, right?
I don't know.
Cori, do you know? Can you? No. Okay. So I joined X first, and I will be totally honest. I have no idea how to actually use Facebook correctly. Everybody gets really mad at me how I use Facebook. Um, I apparently don't use it right. And so you've yelled at me about how I use Facebook. I didn't realize like people send you a friend request. To me, I thought it was just like a follow. request on X, and I'm like, I don't know why I have to approve this. Like, sure. Um, I didn't realize people like keep their Facebook network like tight and small. Um, but you showed me this all trans know e all trans men know each other public group yesterday. And the post that you initially showed me was an individual who was saying that they lost their partner, lost their housing, that they were really,
Disabled,
yeah,
really
yeah.
in bad, dire straits, only gets their $800 disability check.
I mean, but when I started like looking through the rest of these posts, this is really bad stuff.
Yeah. It was really sad because I clicked on this post and I can't find it right now. I'm not going to waste everybody's time, but it was essentially like, "Hey guys, does anybody have any advice? I'm been being kicked out of my home because it's being sold out from under me. My wife left me. I haven't been able to get a job. I'm disabled. I only get my $800 disability payment. X, Y, and Z." And comment after comment after comment was, "This is the same thing that's happened to me. I understand what you're going through. This happened to me. I can relate to this so hard. The same thing happened to me." But like all of these people talking about how they were either homeless, disabled, their partner left them, depressed. I mean, it was really sad. And then you get further into the page, and it is just absolutely wild. It's wild what these girls are talking about on this page publicly. And I want to know, like, who are the doctors that are dealing with some of these people? Because number one, some of the posts are almost completely illiterate. Like these women are unable to express themselves clearly in the written word. Um, every other post is about problems, either mental problems, depression. They call everything dysphoria. Weird post about how they can't wait to wear sexy girls' clothes after they get their top surgery and after they start T. I mean, really very clearly disorganized thinking, mental illness, disabilities. And I just want to know, like, who's treating these people? And, like, what are they treating them for anything else? Because it doesn't seem like it. It's just really sad. It's just really sad. It's a public page. There's 63,000 members on there. Um, and this is where people are going for answers.
I I just went back on today after you had showed me yesterday. Um, Somebody posted that they're feeling blessed because they went in to have vocal cord testosterone injections. This is actually news to me. Apparently, they only started doing these. Doctors have only been injecting testosterone directly into the vocal cord since 2023. At Stanford, I'm the ninth patient to undergo this procedure and only the second to do it after having an Adam's apple augmentation. There are only two published successful cases so far. I mean, and then this whole post is about how they go in and they're having needles externally put in to numb their vocal cords, and then they are injecting testosterone directly through into the vocal cords. I mean, I,
Does this even make any sense medically? I mean,
I, I mean, this poster wrote, there's no established timeline for how long the effects last, how many people it works for, or whether the voice continues to change over time. The research isn't there. Fortunately, my insurance is covering the treatments. I just, but the posts that you showed me, these are really, I, every time I feel like we've moved like a few steps in a right direction, um, when you fall into a rabbit hole like this, it's just like, I think Cori had said once, like, we have to be able to examine. I don't think you said, like, if we're winning, but like be able to get into the mindset of the other side.
Yes, war games.
I when I see this, I, I don't know how to interpret this. It just makes me feel incredibly um yeah.
Yeah, well, what I found really striking is that reading through that the other night, it was very clear that it was a lot of young heterosexual girls who were considering these radical physical augmentations, either getting their breasts removed or starting to like masculinize. It was an aesthetic. It's like a fashion statement. Like they were talking about it the way you would listen to teenage or young adult women talk about clothing that are in style. And it was just like, I don't know how you get yourself it. I have a hard time putting myself in a mindset of someone who has there's absolutely no consideration about what this could be doing to your body. And clearly, whoever they're seeing medically is not giving them this information either.
It's all informed consent. What
Yeah.
information? They just went in and they signed the form. I, Cori, war game me. How do we do it? I still don't understand conceptually how to do it.
How to do the war games?
Yeah.
Well, we have to understand what their goals and objectives are.
There are 63,000 people in this group who are all
Well, lonely. Is that the
Yeah.
word you're searching for?
Yeah, well that's the thing is like they're going on to these pages and these groups and they're getting, the validation that they're seeking,
Mm.
but they're not get what they are not getting is any real support or real answers.
Are they looking for real answers?
Yeah, that's the thing is like, if you dropped a big truth bomb on this page with all of the detrimental effects of testosterone, what would be the reaction? I don't know that any of these people would hear it. That's what scares me is that we do have all the evidence to say that this is not a successful or healthy intervention, and it it's like it falls on deaf ears.
I'm going to change the topic slightly.
Okay.
I have a very close friend whose daughter is going to college in the fall, and she's deciding which school she wants to go to right now. She has acceptance letters from a number of them, and this provoked a conversation between me and my friend, asking, "What is her goal?" And anyone who's already been through college and has either is currently paying off their debts or has already paid off their debts. College, in retrospect, was it worth it? Was the time and the money worth it? But that's not the calculation that you're making before you go into college. And we talked about what some of the motivations are. Is one of the motivations for going to college because you have some sort of talent or skill, and that is an environment where you will be surrounded by people who validate you for having that talent or for being able to perform those tasks. You're an excellent student, so is the thing that you're looking for is 4 more years of people validating your academic abilities? Or are you going because you think that the degree that you attain will help you build yourself economically? Or is it because there's some sort of field that you have a passion for And the only way of working in that field is to have a particular credential. Like, what is your motivation to go to college was the subject. And the thing that we agreed on is that 18-year-olds don't have enough brain development to be the best judges of why they want to go to college. And this is why parents and adults around those kids are so important to help guide them on their college quest, because it's really important to ask questions like, if you leave your 4-year degree with $100,000 in debt, what are you going to do next? And to try to get these young people to understand these things. Now, college is not cutting off any of your body parts or injecting testosterone into your vocal cords. And in that sense, it is less of a commitment than transition. But I think that we're still talking about a very similar age group, and it's still a very similar question. What is it that you're trying to get out of this? Do you know? Can you consciously move your reasoning from subconsciousness to...
Did you do the same cost benefit analysis when you got your cats?
This isn't, is this really cost benefit analysis?
No.
I think this is more trying to understand what your own goals are.
Okay, but your friend's kid is clearly going to go. They applied and they got a bunch of letters, right? Of acceptance.
But some of them are for very specialized programs.
They got into okay.
Yeah, the
Talented kid.
You have to. So this is again something worth considering as an analogy. What is the purpose of the college? I would say that it's to make money. It's to create an environment for people with specialized skills to make money, and for them to perpetuate that organization in order to keep making money and making money for other people. Stop.
I didn't go to college to make money.
I mean, I went to college because I didn't know what else to do.
Cori, why did you go to college?
I went to college as an adult. I was 30 years old when I started college. And my goal was to build out my ability to understand the world so that I could be able to gain more opportunities in it. Yeah,
and I think that's a very adult thing to do, but you were an adult.
Right.
I was 18, and I'm of the generation where, like, you just had to go to college, you have to get a degree. I graduated and became a handyman. So, but I mean, again, I have friends that now at 43 are still saddled with debt and have never really used their college degree. So
they might have benefited from an adult interrogating them.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, is that there's all of these people that, like, and they're not necessarily all really young, but a majority of them are very young on this page.
Right.
They're going to peers who are equally, unprepared for life to validate their decisions, and it's just very sad. It's just yeah, it was like a train wreck. I couldn't look away. It was...
Well, they want validation, they want attention. And I would say that even more fundamental to those things are people want a sense of direction in terms of why do I exist? What is the meaning of my life? They want to feel, because when you're in elementary school, middle school, high school, you have an answer to that, which is you are a student, you are a child. Your job is to make it into adulthood with the skill set. So you have some direction. It's kind of built in. Then as soon as you get out of high school, the entire world opens up, but you don't necessarily have that direction anymore. And becoming an adult is scary.
I think you should talk to one of my older kids, Cori.
He's not thinking about having his genitals removed, is he?
Oh my God, no, he's
Okay.
obsessed with his broken transmission in his car right now. But he doesn't there is a dearth of, is that the right word? Of direction for young people in this country right now.
Yeah,
I think
a
there's
good war would sort everything out.
oh my God. I'm a parent. I'm not. No, but I think that there has been a shift. I do think a number of young people are questioning this. Do I go to college? Is that the trajectory? Is this how I move forward? I'm getting the sense that part of what you're saying is that, again, like gender has created an alternative pathway. You do this instead. It gives you goals. It gives you.
Yeah, it gives you a structured way to move forward. I mean, towards hurting yourself, but I can see I can see why it's so appealing for young people today because there is such a lack of direction, such a lack of boundaries too.
Well, on a positive note, my other child who is not competitive at all and is not an athlete is, we have an excellent event we're looking forward to tonight for him. He was invited to participate in a donut hole eating contest at the halftime show of the basketball game tonight. And
Cool.
he told me he was going to win it. That was his, I'm going to win.
All right. That's there are famous competitive eaters, and if
I know.
that's his
He told us
trajectory,
he told us he's not going to eat all day. I don't even know. I don't even know. Being a parent is really, really hard right now in a lot of ways. Could you imagine if one of these young people on this Facebook page was your kid though?
No. Well, I feel like the donut hole eating competition transitions us nicely into our second segment with someone who is very familiar with competition.
Okay, we should actually talk about this, the three of us, before we do this interview.
oh, so do we want to cut off here and then?
No, no, no. I think we should talk for a few minutes before we go into this interview.
Yeah.
Okay.
On in the recording.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're
Here's
so
my
professional, guys. We're so professional.
here's my reasoning. Okay. There's two things that I want to talk with our guest about, and I think we should kind of like hash it out a little bit here. So I was thinking about this a lot this week. Are when we talk about the gender culture war, right? Like I I don't know how to best articulate this because the segment of the gender culture war I feel that I know the most about is the medicine side. The hormones, the, puberty blockers, cross-sex hormone surgeries, like that and that like realm. That's what I feel like I know the most about. Cori, you had a face.
No, keep going.
Okay. And it's been like 3 years since I fell into this rabbit hole. And the more that I am in it, the more I realize there's everything that I know about that. I don't know what Kim Jones from Icon knows or what Jen Sey knows from XXXY. Like we like it, like we're interacting, but I feel like we come up against each other and we're like, "Hey, we're on the same team." And then you realize as you dig in and you dig in and you dig in, like are we always on the same team?
What's the team?
Well, I guess that's part of what I'm starting to like suss out because one of the things I didn't realize was that for a while from the sports people, they were sports people in support of puberty blockers, thinking if you just blocked the kid, then they could go on to participate. Like there's all of these like streams and threads and people here who know so much that like I'm beginning to realize, I think instead of just making assumptions like we're all on the same team, like I think we need to have even deeper conversations, even when we talk about like the feminists and who's a turf and like those things, like uh, are we on the same team? What's the end goal? What is an end goal for like Jen Say look like? We can ask her that today. Or like Kim Jones with Icons or Riley Gaines. Like, what's our end goal versus those end goals? Like, when do they know that they've reached their stuff?
Yeah, you'll remember I've asked you that question before, Jamie.
Where's my stopping point?
Yeah, I remember the time and place that I asked you.
Where was it?
It was in Boston, and we were driving in a car.
Did I have a good answer?
You were still thinking about it.
Where's your stopping point, Cori?
Well, I'm close to hitting it. Almost the majority of states, including many blue states, have stopped medicalizing kids. The federal government has dramatically disabled gender ideology in the federal government. The trends are becoming really clear. There's not much more I can do personally. I'm at the, if you know the little install bar when you're putting in software, I'm at the 99%. I don't think it's hit 100%, but what else is there for me?
Lauren, I don't think you would answer the same way Cori just did.
I think I have some benchmarks in mind, like particularly stop ending pediatric gender interventions would be a benchmark, but I think that there's just so much social cleanup to do because even if you end these treatments, there's still people that have been harmed. There's still people that have been harmed and don't realize they've been harmed and are happy with having been harmed. I mean, the social fallout of this will be another 50 years if we're lucky.
But but I want to honor I like that Cori, I like your benchmark and that you're almost there. D-
Me too.
Does it feel like are you just ready to move into like the next part of your
Yeah, I had my career on hold for the last 6 or 7 years while I spent so much time on this issue. I would like to be spending a lot more time. Uh, First of all, I'm converting to Judaism. I'd like to spend more time studying my faith of choice, religion of choice, and I would like to get my career back on track again. It's been a big sacrifice for me. And I accomplished a lot of what I wanted, and it was worth putting everything else on pause while I did that. But I don't want to be doing this 10 years from now. I don't think I want to be doing it 5 years from now. And I think, from what Lauren said, I agree. There's the repercussions of this are going to go on for the rest of our lifetimes. But for me, turning off the taps or getting them tightened as much as I could do, I'm willing to lean back at this point and watch to see what happens. We're already seeing a little bit of data that the profile of who's identifying as trans is changing. The youngest people now are not identifying as trans at the rates that the generation of the 2020s, the high schoolers in 2020s, have a different profile than the high schoolers of the 2026. So we're seeing trans is not as cool as it used to be. And in fact, we might be seeing some commercial on the Super Bowl in a couple of years where some kid is walking down the hallway and gets a sticker on their backpack that says "Dirty Trans," right? We may see this sort of trend of it's so uncool to be trans again that there's advocacy commercials of stop treating.
I know what ad you're talking about.
Yeah.
The sticker in that ad said Jew on it.
Oh, what did it say?
It said Jew on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually a great ad.
It wasn't a great ad, but I think it did better than the fallout from the Ring ad that is having.
I don't know the Ring ad.
Big Brother is watching us. Oh. But what? Okay, so then how do you walk away? How do you close that chapter?
Well, I know what I set out to accomplish, just to change the policy around this. And the policy has substantially changed around it. And there's more people can do. But I'm towards the end of what I could do. Jamie and Lauren, you're the co-directors of the Courage Coalition. And so when calling back to what we were talking about earlier, everybody needs a purpose. You have a purpose. Your purpose is deeply intertwined with the Courage Coalition mission. You and the Courage Coalition have the same mission. I don't have the same mission as the Courage Coalition. And I've sort of accomplished my mission.
When I will know when I'm done is when I can fill up an auditorium with a bunch of young butch lesbians and young effeminate gay men. And I can say, how about you vote amongst yourselves about who's going to lead you into the future and who's going to carry this torch?
Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Because right now, if you go out, I don't see a lot of young women that look like me. I don't see a lot of proud young effeminate gay guys. They're all getting sucked into this. They can't even conceptualize themselves as gay. So I'm not done until there's a next generation of gay kids willing to stand up to protect themselves.
Well, we need to.
We need to empower them to do that. So we need
to wrap up because I'm starting to cry here. But
I got you.
We're a long way off, I think. But yeah.
The one thing I think we do a really bad job of. I'm sorry, I am crying, Lauren. Made me cry. And Cori made me cry, but
Fuck assholes, am I right, Lauren?
Fuck assholes.
Cori, how do we honor your contributions? How do we make sure that have we as a movement done a good job of like tracking those 30 years from now that we should remember? Like,
No, that was never part of the bargain. That was never something that was going to happen.
but I want to give you that though.
Yeah, but I didn't do it for that. And the the assumption for any activist going into this is the machine will tear you into pieces and spit you out, and the hope is that that meant something. That's all you get. And I have that. I have all the successes that I was able to achieve, especially with you two. All of those things can never be taken away. The battle will still go on, and God, I hope that we've been so successful that I don't feel tempted to come back into this. But there's no pension for activists.
It's not that it's even like a pension. It's just that like this fight has taken so much from people.
Yes. And you're not guaranteed anything, and when you win, you're not given anything. That's it. This is we used to understand what sacrifice meant. This is what sacrifice is you give and you give and you give. You're not guaranteed to win anything, and if you did win, you don't get anything back. That's sacrifice, and that's okay.
Well, this is my second attempt to make a smooth transition to our next interview. So, speaking of winning and getting awarded for that winning, in our next segment, we will be talking to a former Olympic athlete.
Not Olympic, national.
Fuck, see, I already fucked it up.
But it's okay. Let's
We
just
better
go.
we better hop over.
Let's go
hop over
talk to
and
Jennifer
explain
Sey.
to her why I'm crying.
Yeah,
All
let's
right.
go talk to Jennifer Sey of XXXY. And we're back with Jennifer Sey.
Introductions.
With
Starting with
introductions that Jamie forgot about. I am Lauren Legere, co-executive director of the LGB Courage Coalition, along with my two co-hosts, Jamie Reed and Cori Cohn, and we are joined today by Jennifer Sey of XXXY. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
I stopped crying. My name is Jamie Reed. I am a whistleblower from a pediatric gender center, and I'm really honored that, Jen, you're with us today. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah.
Cori.
I'm Cori Cohn. I make women cry. Jennifer, welcome
Cori,
to Informed Dissent.
I'm really happy to be here. I think you all do such amazing work. Cori, I will be very easy, probably likely to make cry. I'm Jen Sey, founder and CEO of XXXY Athletics, but before that, elite gymnast, national champion like 1,000 years ago, but still was first person to speak up about abuse in gymnastics, longtime fashion exec, COVID dissenter, which got me canceled from everything, and here we are.
So, Jen, you've already brought up a couple of things that I want to go into in depth. So, you have this history of basically being willing to step into the breach, I think is how you've phrased it in the past, or go outside of the dominant narrative or what everybody else is saying, this looks like a great idea. You've been one of those people to say, let's slow down, let's stop for a minute, or even just say this is wrong and this needs to be addressed. Um, I wonder if we could maybe chronologically start,
Yep.
and then there's going to be a certain point where I want us to segue into where we're at to where we could be if trans didn't come into play. Does that work?
Yeah, whatever you want to do, I can do that. Yeah.
Okay. So talk about growing up as an athlete.
Yeah. So I had a pretty unusual childhood. I didn't just do sports. Sports was my entire life from the time I was about 6. I started gymnastics just 2 years after Title IX passed. It is a young sport, or it was viewed as exclusively young back then, which created a whole host of problems, which we can talk about. But I loved it. I mean, what's more fun than gymnastics as a little kid, flipping and flying? And I worked hard. I just wanted to get better. I just wanted to get better every single day. And by the time I was 10, I made my first national team. And by the time I was 14, I moved away from home, was training 6 to 8 hours a day, 10 in the summer. It was brutal. When I left home at 14 to go to a gym that had a lot of national team athletes, Olympic athletes, it really shifted the training. Before that, I actually had a really lovely coach. I was blessed. After that, I did not have a lovely coach. I had incredibly abusive coaches, but I wanted to be as good as I could be. And I sort of, in my mind, if I think back on it, I think I consciously did this thing where it was like, okay, this is the exchange. I do whatever you say, and you give me back the thing that I want, which is to be, it wasn't even to be an Olympian, Jamie. It was just to be the best I could be. I wanted to test myself and see how good I could be. And what was asked of us was, it wasn't asked, it was demanded. And the environment was really, really abusive. And we can get into that. And, but I got it. I became the 1986 national champion and was, ranked in the top 6 for many, many years. And, it nearly ruined me.
Let's talk about coaching for a minute. This word,
Yeah.
like coach. Who is the coach? What is their role? What do they do? So you said you got into gymnastics 2 years after Title IX, which means if I'm thinking about then, there probably wasn't a whole generation of women coach, like women hadn't been participants and then become experts and then they could go into coaching. So
Correct.
would you think it's fair to say that almost all of your coaches in this sport were men?
You know what? No, it was 50-50, and the women were just as bad as the men. I have to be honest. The men much more notoriously were predatory, but the women were cruel beyond belief. I mean, it's hard to describe the cruelty. And that was the dynamic. That was the environment. It just was, kids didn't matter. We were all disposable. If you couldn't hack it, you weren't tough enough. So get out, and there's another one to take your place. And to act like this was the 70s and 80s that's a falsehood. I believe it continues to this day. We can talk about that. It is this bizarre world where this just complete abuse is totally normalized, and the parents accept it.
Okay, so there is this element, though, of what a coach is asking for from their athlete is to push your body. And in part, when you're pushing your body, you have to push your psyche and your spirit to the breaking point. I mean, that is, in essence, what sports pulls from us. And I will be the first to admit I was never a nationally ranked athlete in any way, but I played volleyball, basketball, softball, soccer, dance, and then when I narrowed down my sports, it was all soccer. and I was a goalkeeper, and I went to intensive summer training programs where it was, 8-hour program. If
Yep.
you, the end of that first night would be, if I could walk, it would be to
Yeah.
walk at the front door to get to the bathtub to soak in Epsom salt. And to be
Understood.
covered in bruises was like, showed that you put everything in that you could. Broken bones. I mean,
Yep.
that was what sport and those coaches would ask. They would push you because to win sometimes means you have to get to that point.
I can't assess your situation. I would argue in the sport of gymnastics, they lose more than they gain with these behaviors, and that they do not, it is a bright line between tough coaching and abuse. And I'm all for tough coaching. I hate this. Everyone gets a medal, everyone gets a pat on the back. It's bullshit. And the point of sports is to find that resilience and that perseverance and to know what it takes to learn mastery, to fall down and be pushed to get back up again. But we were denied food. Our bags were searched when we traveled, which was often. Any food in our bags was taken. We were told our weight was announced on the loudspeaker every day. We were told, I don't coach fat pigs. You're not going to the next competition. Ex-gymnast, do you want to look like your mother? Her mother's waiting to pick her up and is 350 pounds. 400 calories a day max. That was the requirement. Lose 3 pounds by tomorrow. I don't care how you do it. Mocked if you got your period. I didn't get my period until I was 19. The whole point was to stave off menstruation because they believed at the time in the sport that if you matured in that way, you couldn't do it. So that's just the weight stuff. Injuries, broke my ankle, got the cast off after 9 days. My coach marched into the doctor's office and said, take it off. She's got nationals in a few months. And they had this doctor that did their bidding, basically. He ended up being one of the first doctors to do blood doping as well. So this was not an ethical person. I did train on an ankle that was broken for 2 years, which is, if you can imagine, not that functional today. And that's not even getting into, the predatory sexual abuse. But I believe all that emotional and physical abuse, which I think that is, sets the stage for sexual abuse because you are so upside down as a kid at that point. You're 12 years old, you think you're hungry, you haven't eaten anything all day, and you are told you're fat. You don't know which way is up. You are working your butt off and you're told you're a lazy piece of garbage and you're so tired you can barely move. It's completely disorienting. So if a young child walks into the office of a Dr. Larry Nassar, and he says, this is medical treatment, and you feel it's not right, you're already so disoriented in the world and you don't trust your own perception of things. I traveled around the world with the national team coach who was a known pedophile, and we were told just to avoid him. Don't let him come in your room. Don't shut the door. Don't let him shut the door. He's a great coach, so just protect yourself. We don't want to harm his reputation. I don't know. I think that's abuse. And I think the message sent to kids is they don't matter. They're disposable. We were 13, 14 years old. We wanted this thing. So many great athletes were lost in this process to injury and to eating disorder. I actually think we'd be better if that. I think we'd have more. We're the best country in the world in gymnastics, but I think we'd be even better if it was tough coaching and not that kind of abuse.
Do you think the sport of gymnastic itself is particularly vulnerable to this type of abuse? Like you mentioned that kids do start much younger in gymnastics, right?
I think that's a good insight. I do think so. I think part of the problem in gymnastics was and has been, and I hope this is changing a little bit, it was always viewed as, first of all, it's a subjective sport. So that in of itself creates problems. You could make the team and not be placed on the floor at the Olympics if the coach decides you're a problem. So it encourages this obedience because it's subjective. The judges know, they knew us. If you were a problem, that would impact your score. So you learn to be very quiet. You learn to be seen and not heard. But the way the sport was viewed for many, many years, decades, is that you had to have this tiny, tiny body, prepubescent body, which created the eating disorders. And that was the accepted aesthetic. And it was viewed that you basically had maybe 4 good seasons as a national team competitor. That's 4 years. So if you get injured, you're not letting that injury heal. You're going to go right back. You can't miss 1 of 4 seasons that you have in your life. You never took any breaks. There were no vacation. There were no days off. It was 6 days a week. You got Sunday off. And on Sunday, all I did was work out in a plastic sweatsuit to make sure I didn't gain weight for weigh-in the next day. So I do think that creates problems. And look, who's more of a pleaser than a 12-year-old, 13-year-old girl?
Yeah.
If we had been adults, I don't know, maybe I would have pushed back more. Not sure. If I'd grown up in that environment and then became an adult, probably not. And I think a lot of the people that I trained with, women now, they still suffer from almost like a Stockholm syndrome. Like they still want the approval of these horrible coaches in their 40s and 50s. It's like complete madness. But that is the dynamic that's created with an abusive, parent, adult, mentor, whatever it is. That sort of maturation process is suspended, I think, for the person that's abused, and they're still going to always be approval seeking. They're going to think everything's their fault their whole life because their parents said to them, if you weren't bad, I wouldn't have to beat you, which is basically what we got. If you weren't fat, I wouldn't have to make you do 2 hours of extra conditioning in the plastic sweatsuit, and I wouldn't have to take this food away from you after a competition, but you're fat, so I have to. That was the dynamic.
The parents get recruited into this dynamic?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I'd use the word recruited, but they get lulled into that being normal. You live in a fun house in this world. Like you don't have much exposure to, I barely went to school. I was in school a couple hours a day. And then the parents, they're just with the other parents at these competitions. All the coaches behave this way. And so it becomes normal. I mean, when I wrote my book in 2008 and reported on, this was 20 years after I left the sport, regular people thought it sounded insane and awful. It was only people in the Olympic movement and in gymnastics that were like, that's not true. She's a liar and a grifter. And this is just tough coaching. Normies were like, yeah, do we curse on this show? I don't know.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, the normies were like, that's fucked up. I always thought that sport was fucked up. Look how young the girls are. Like, that isn't right. The normies knew it was in the sport. So I don't know if they're recruited, but they certainly become hypnotized. And some of them are all in on it. I mean, have you been to a youth soccer game lately? I can't even stand with some of the parents.
Well,
I can't really stand with the parents because it's lunacy.
You have a daughter that's a soccer player, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's only 9.
When Lauren, when you're saying like gymnastics starts early, I do think that
serious, like you can be very serious
like
in the sport at a very young age.
Exactly. It doesn't matter the sport. If there's a young person that has a real aptitude, that there's some kind of natural talent, they will pull them very, very early on. I mean,
that's true. I think it's still in gymnastics. I mean, I was traveling around the world with coaches to represent America at 11. It's a weird sport that doesn't often happen. I think the other thing, Lauren, just to go back to your question before, I think individual sports can have a particularly deranged coach athlete relationship because it's just so intense. It's not sort of diffused over the team. You can become a favorite and you get this weird deranged attention from the coach. So I think that's it. I mean, I will just say it. I think sports where the athletes are young girls, barely dressed, attracts predators for sure. In gymnastics, there's spotting. There's a lot of touching, inappropriate touching that is justified as necessary to spot the girls to learn the tricks. So many of the coaches who have been either banned or even gone to prison, that's how they groom. They experiment with touching publicly while they're spotting the girls, slide a hand inside the leotard. So, I mean, and to your earlier point, Jamie, none of these men most of them weren't even gymnasts, let alone female gymnasts. And women's gymnastics is a different sport than men. So it attracts not the best people. Let's just put it that way. It attracts not the best people. So, I mean, I would make the case that 25% of the coaches on the coaching staff at my private club were sort of known sexual abusers. That's a pretty high percentage, don't you think?
Yeah. That's terrifying. Known, like people know and are still sending young girls to them.
Did everyone know? We knew and we whispered about it. And it was the 70s and the early 80s. And there was, inappropriate grooming talk, which mommy wanted to fuck, to 13, 14-year-old girls. It was a bizarre environment. I managed to keep myself safe in that aspect of it. I think I sent a pretty strong signal not to come anywhere near me.
Are you an only child? Do you have siblings?
I have a sibling. He was also a gymnast. We sadly are estranged because of COVID, but we used to be close.
Were your parents athletes?
Not really. I think my dad is very athletic. I mean, he's 84 now, but I think he is very athletic. There weren't the same opportunities, in the 40s and 50s. He had a tough childhood, so that was certainly not a focus. I think if he grew up in another time, he might have been an athlete that excelled, at least, at the college level. I was just a really active, busy kid. And in the 70s, right after Title IX, there still weren't that many opportunities for little girls. There weren't soccer clubs everywhere like there are now. But gyms were popping up because gymnastics in the Olympics was very popular. It's still the most watched sport in the Summer Olympics, women's gymnastics. And so you had Olga Korbut in 1972, and then you had Nani Comaneci in 1974 or 1976, and gyms started popping up, and I just loved it. And that's what I want to do all the time. And I think my brother ended up getting ushered into it just because they were there all the time. Poor kid, because I was doing it all the time. He was good though. He's two-time national champ at Stanford, team national champ. So he was good too.
When you narrowed in on gymnastics, was that it? That was your sport and that was what you...
That's a good question. I played Little League with the boys when I was up to about 7. And I did a lot of dance. And at about 9 or 10, my coaches said she has to stop going to dance. She had to choose because I think I showed up to practice late twice a week because I had dance class. And it was an easy choice for me to choose gymnastics.
So I've only really played in team sport. In an individual sport, are you both competing against yourself and then the people that are supposed to be on your team as well as the other team?
It's completely an individual sport. Like even when you watch the Olympics and you're on Team USA, I mean, yes, there's a team medal, but you're competing against all those girls for the individual medal. So
there isn't like a sense of camaraderie like that you would build up on a team sport. Yeah.
No, everyone you train with, who are the only girls who understand what it's like and what you're going through and how bizarre your childhood is and the trauma of it all, they're also your competitors, and you don't want to show any weakness. And so, it's interesting. Some of us talked about that many years later, that we wished we'd known that we were all going through it and that we were all really struggling and suffering, but you didn't share it. It would be like showing weakness, exposing your jugular to the competition. And as far as your private club team, you rarely compete as a team in competitions with them. I mean, there are what were called invitationals where you would compete as a team, but those were sort of training grounds. Those weren't that important. It's an individual sport all the time. And yeah, it's cutthroat. And I mean, I loved those girls, but I knew they were my competition.
So Jen, when you wrote your book and you kind of exposed what was going on, what prompted you to write the book and start speaking out about the abuse within the sport?
My own struggles with, what I'd gone through. It wasn't this conscious choice. It's my naivete, I think, generally that gets me in trouble. I just start down a path and I don't think about what the repercussions for me personally might be. I just think, oh, I'm going to say this thing that's true and everybody will listen and it'll be fine. And that's not at all what happens. And with the book in particular, I really just, I was almost 40 when I wrote it. I had 2 kids, was married, and was struggling. I had a successful career. I mean, I think I was already a vice president at Levi's, and I was just like, had terrible imposter syndrome, anxiety, periodic depression, nightmares about the gym, nightmares about getting weighed in. I mean, like crazy shit, stupid shit for a successful 40-year-old to go through. And so I thought I'll just write it all down. It was more like a journal exercise. I wasn't a writer. I didn't think I'd get it published necessarily, but I had a friend read it and it just poured out of me. A friend who is a writer, I had her read it, or former friend. And she was like, this is a book. You did it. And she gave me feedback. I redid it and set about trying to find an agent. This was in the day when you sort of still needed one. And then I sold it very quickly. HarperCollins bought it and it came out 2 weeks or 3 weeks before the 2008 Olympics and was like a bit of a firebomb. I was just trying to make sense of my own struggle. And it did really help. It did really help to do that. But what I did not expect, the backlash and the pushback that I got from my own teammates, from USA Gymnastics, from the USOPC, from heads of gymnastics federations around the world, calling me a liar and a grifter and all of the things. And I was very ill prepared for that, because think about, what did you know about social media back in 2008? Very little. I didn't know how cruel it was, and I didn't know to just turn it off and not look. And I made myself insane. And I really did pull back for a time because I thought, I just can't handle this. And then I realized no one else is going to do it. And kids are still suffering. This is all still alive and well. It's still the same. So I'll just
you getting, like, I know you were getting negative feedback, but were you getting people reaching out to you saying like thank you for saying this? Like, I went through something similar. I mean, you must have gotten some it couldn't have all been she's a liar, because you weren't lying. And if it happened to you, it clearly was happening to others.
I did get some, Lauren, and that did keep me going. And that kind of gave me the, fortification to come out of retreat mode. By retreat mode, I would say, because I was on all the shows, like the big show, Today Show and Good Morning America, because it was like this thing, right? The sport we love to watch, those dancing little pixies, they're being abused. I mean, it's a big salacious story, I got a lot of messages from not known athletes, but ice skaters, gymnasts, dancers. It's very similar dynamic in all of those things, that said they'd been through something similar or were very young and going through it, at the time. But publicly, it was my teammates, Team USA. I was getting voicemails from the head of USA Gymnastics at my work, who has since been banned for destroying evidence of the Nassar crimes. Like I said, heads of federations around the world, some of whom have since been ousted for overseeing abusive regimes for many years. Publicly, that was what I was getting. One of my teammates called in when I was on a national NPR radio show. I can't remember which one it was. She's a lawyer threatening to sue me on behalf of the coaches. And she and I trained together for years. It was just, I don't think that would startle me now, but it was 20-ish years ago. And I was very unaccustomed to that kind of dragging on the internet culture. I didn't understand it. And it was very unnerving to me. So it was difficult to get through. I was not in a particularly happy marriage. That didn't help. But eventually it strengthened my resolve, I would say. It strengthened my resolve. 2 years after my book came out, a book by a woman who is named Dominique Mosiano, who you may have heard of. She was 1996 gold medalist. Magnificent Seven is what they're called. So 2 years after mine came out, hers came out. And it was about how abusive the Carolis are. And so then she and I became friends, and that helped because there were two of us at least, not just one. But it really wasn't until the Larry Nassar case broke, which first happened in 2016 and then did not get sort of resolved until 2018 when he went to prison for life, that people said, you were right.
Yeah.
Let's just pause for just a minute. I just want people who are listening to, I just want to share this. So the book that you put out was published in 2008. It was called Chalked Up. And it was My Life in Elite Gymnastics, Jen Sey, 1986 National Gymnastics Champion. And it is, I mean, it is still widely available. It looks like people still purchase this book and still read it to this day. But so that came out in 2008. And then what was that first news, if you remember, about Larry Nassar? Because I knew
it was, okay.
But
I knew it was coming.
Okay.
For a few reasons. One, the civil attorney for most of the gymnasts who ended up coming forward became a friend over the course of 2 or 3 years. He reached out to me, I believe in 2015. He had his first client. He had been an attorney for victims of sexual abuse in the Catholic Church, not in sport. He didn't know anything about gymnastics. So he called me just randomly at work, like called the main number and asked to be connected. And I answered, which who would do that? Like a lunatic, me. And we ended up talking for hours. And I explained, he said, I'm told if I want to understand the sport of gymnastics, I need to talk to you. And so he was representing at the time, though I didn't know it, a woman named Jamie Dancher, who was on the 2000 Olympics and was really one of the very first people to come forward. And was the first to file a civil case against Nassar. I then worked with him, John, who's in the news again as of yesterday, calling out the California public school system and the teachers' unions. Worked with him and reached back, because I overlapped essentially with Nassar. He became the trainer my last year in the sport. I did not know him, the trainer for Team USA. But I was connected in the sport, and I knew people that had been abused, essentially, though I didn't know it at the time. So I worked with John, but the Indy Star newspaper, which is a local newspaper, I think a real testament to local journalism. They did just an amazing job on this. They're the ones who broke the story, and I had been talking with them before the story broke, so I knew it was coming. Because I was really the only one talking about these things. So if you're going to write a case about a story about abuse in sport or gymnastics, I usually got a call. So I knew it was coming. I didn't understand the scale of it. 30 years, 500 victims. It's pretty astonishing. 500 that we know of. Right. I didn't understand how many times he'd been reported to the authorities and various authorities, Michigan State Police, USA Gymnastics, USOPC, the FBI, over and over and over again. And they took his side or brushed it under the rug or failed to investigate. So 2016 is when I think the charges were brought. And most people don't know this. The reason he's in prison, the primary reason, is child. You're not supposed to call it child pornography. What's the name? Anyway, that you guys know what I mean. Child pornography. 72,000 images found on his computer.
From a man who had been working with young girls for 30
But you know
years.
what he did? Yeah, exactly. But that was the federal crime. But what he did was, so he was a doctor, and he was revered as, an excellent doctor. Not, but he was a DO, and he basically, under the guise of medical treatment, he sexually assaulted these girls. He inserted his ungloved hand into their vaginas, their anuses, girls as young as 8, parents in the room sometimes, literally the parent in the room. Groomed the parents, would just keep talking to the mother, had a blanket over, and this young girl is sitting on. And no matter what you came in for, it could be back pain, it could be my arm hurts, did the same thing every time. And because of what I described, I mean, these are 8, 9, 10, 12-year-old girls. They don't know. He's saying this is medical treatment. And when people would report him to the police, or he had this PowerPoint presentation he would do about how this was real medical treatment, pelvic floor treatment, he called it. And they always just believed him. For years. And then it got worse and worse. So there is some evidence that he had a few favorites that he assaulted and abused, because he ended up being the team doctor for Team USA. That's how he got his credibility, right? He had pictures of all the Olympians on the walls. He would travel with them to competitions. He had them alone at the training camp ranch, the Cori Ranch, in a very remote location. He was the one entrusted to stay with the girls and guard them at night. He was the chaperone. I mean, this was like a fox in the hen house type situation. Obviously.
And then I would imagine if he's the team doctor, he has kind of this authority too to say whether you can compete or not. So he has that.
Lauren, is what is the deal that was the deal with the devil that was made.
Yeah.
The wink wink was, I want her back out on the floor.
Yeah.
You send her out. I'll just look the other way when you are there at the ranch with her. With Michaela Maroney, who was his favorite. Because the Carolis knew, the head of USAG knew. It was reported to the FBI, the Indiana FBI in 2015. Nothing was investigated for over a year, 15 months.
I just keep thinking about the wrestler in Oregon right now who
Washington.
in Washington,
Yeah.
she stepped up. They told the coach, and nobody did anything for 53 days. I'm just like,
Yeah.
This was, Jamie, think there were 3 young women, Olympians, like these stars. Not that they should get more attention, and not that you should ignore an unknown girl, but this was Allie Raisman. Like, these were the stars in American gymnastics. Went to USAG, is reported to the FBI. Behind the scenes, the head of USA Gymnastics, Steve Penny, was telling this guy that it was reported to, can you just slow roll this? They wanted to get to the Olympics without any PR nightmares. 15 months. They did nothing. He didn't investigate. He was sort of promised a job in security with US Olympic Committee. You want this cushy job, just take your time here. The FBI has now paid out, I think, $95 million to the victims. In that 15 months, the number, I think it's 40 or 50 additional girls were abused and assaulted in that 15-month period that we know about. I don't get it. I don't know. Someone explain it to me. What's wrong with these people? I don't understand it.
And there's a lot of similarities to what girls are facing now in sports, being gaslit, being having their boundaries violated. You know, if you want
And
to stay
being
on the
told,
team, you have to go along with it. I mean, it's very similar. So
be
it's
quiet, just
just
take it.
yeah, it's very disheartening. It's like we're still telling, I mean, you started in 1986 and we're now in 2026, and the same message is being sent to female athletes. Like, it doesn't matter what they do to you. If you want to play, this is what you put up with.
Yeah, I started in
And
1976.
now
But
they
yes,
don't
well
even
said.
get they don't even get to compete fairly because what they're dealing with is males in their sport, in their locker room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it kills me, because I know what that felt like as a kid. Be
Yeah.
quiet, behave, sit down, just stop. You don't get to criticize him, that coach. He's a good coach. He's a well-respected coach. So just shut up and take it.
You need
And
to
that's what
trust
we do
people
to
more.
all that. I trust zero people for the most part. Maybe you guys. I see the girls' faces on the podium, in the second or third spot, trying to smile. It's the same. Is that
Yeah.
cat or a dog?
That's cat. That's Corey's cat.
It breaks my heart. I thought we were past this, telling girls to shut up and be quiet and just take it and give the guy what he wants, because that guy deserves it, that's what we're doing. Give that man what he wants. He says he's a girl. He gets to have that. His feelings matter more than your rights. It's the same.
Yeah,
His feelings, it's
so much
exactly the
of
same.
this is like, so much of this, I've said the same thing. I thought we were past this, but were we? Did we ever really get
No,
past it? Because here
no.
we are making the same arguments, and girls are still suffering under the same kind of
It has a new
situations.
face.
It just has a new
It
face. It
has a
just has
new
a new
face,
face.
and people are totally duped by it.
Yeah.
And I think, I think about why are they duped by this? I'm sure you guys, it's the same. It's a dude
Crossing
entering,
boundaries. Yeah.
crossing boundaries, entering our spaces, taking what's ours. Our coaches wandered into the locker room, like same type of stuff. Then he was a man and he was the coach, and maybe it wasn't right, but you're just being sensitive. So you should just keep it to yourself. It's exactly the same. But so many people are fooled by it now. And I think people my age, I think I'm older than you guys, they're afraid. I don't know. They conflate this with, gay rights, and they are afraid maybe they were on the wrong side for a brief period there. Maybe they weren't for gay marriage, and they see it as the same, and it's not the same. And
No.
then you also have like Gen Xers and Boomers who I think just think of themselves still as so progressive, and whatever it takes to kind of wrap yourself in that progressiveness. Their whole identity is wrapped up in it, and they don't want to be accused of, being a conservative of all things. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't want to skip over COVID though for a minute.
Okay.
Which I can't believe I just said that. I can't believe I just said that, because I'm almost always the one on this show that's like, no, stay on gender. We can only talk about gender. But your book comes out, Larry Nassar breaks. At a certain point, do you just settle back into your working?
Totally.
Okay.
Totally.
You're working. You have kids. You're making money.
Yeah, I got divorced, so I got a little distracted with that. That's very difficult. That's very hard. I don't. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. without sort of well, there was upside at the end. I'm happily married now, so there was upside. But yeah, and then my career really started to take off. I mean, I was already pretty successful, but it really started to go like this. And then, by the time the Nassar story broke, I was very successful. I think I was a senior vice president. I was very well established, not just in the company, but in the entire corporate community. People knew me and liked me. I was, being paraded around as this successful female executive, and I'd reinvented this brand and brought it back from the brink of bankruptcy, which was true. And I was a different kind of breed of female executive. I didn't do things the old way. I wanted to create an environment for my employees and my team that everybody felt like they had a chance to build a meaningful career. I cared a ton about the people that I worked with. I sort of was known for that, I would say. And I just contemporized this brand that was literally on the verge of bankruptcy. So yeah, I had a good run there. I met my second husband in that time frame. I had 2 more children. Things were good. And then I made a movie. I made Athlete A. So Nassar gets convicted. I know so many of the survivors, victims. And I thought, I'll make this documentary film. It's called Athlete A. You can watch it on Netflix. It won an Emmy. So yeah, everything was good, but I decided I should probably blow that up, I guess.
I don't think that's not what your thought process was. Like, let's blow this up.
Certainly was not. No.
Okay.
It certainly.
Where were you geographically living when COVID hit?
I lived in San Francisco. I lived there for about 35 years total. I love that place like no other place I had ever been. I'd gone to Stanford and moved right to San Francisco after, which is about, half hour north. It was the first time I ever was in a place that felt like home. I moved around so much as a kid to train. Like I didn't have a sense of home in place. And I always tell people, if you ever felt like a weirdo in your whole life, San Francisco was the best place to live in the 90s. I mean, it's hard still. I wish I could go back, but it's not the San Francisco I fell in love with. And frankly, it hadn't been for some time since the tech takeover, really. But I made the conscious choice. I stayed in San Francisco. I didn't move to the burbs when I had kids. I lived in my little apartment in San Francisco with 4 children, sent them to San Francisco public schools. I wanted to be of that city. I wasn't trying to live in it, but in an ivory tower. I was in it. I loved it more than any place on earth.
Okay, so since we never really talk about gender, I'll just give this tiny little segue. So I was in my master's program, and I was in a class called epidemiology, if you have any idea what that's about, right before COVID hit. And we had started seeing this trickling of news coming out of China.
Mm-hmm.
I also had a child who was in a Chinese language immersion school, and he had started his teachers were all from either Taiwan or mainland China. Yeah, so he had started a count of the COVID deaths in Mandarin on a piece of paper that was tacked up in our kitchen at the time. I remember in Epi class, we were doing the same thing, a count up on the dry erase board, and then one day we were all just sent home.
Yeah. And can I tell you something? You're going to appreciate this. I traveled a lot internationally for Levi's. The last trip I ever took was to Wuhan.
Oh my God.
This is just a total aside from gender, obviously. November 2019, I was in Wuhan, of all places, because we just opened a giant store there and we did a big event. And as I came back, I started hearing on the news in the background, Wuhan, Wuhan. I'm like, why are they talking about Wuhan? So, yeah, but similar, right? And then the buzz kept coming about Wuhan. By February, I was already in a a panic that the world was going to shut down and that was going to be a very bad thing. I was not afraid. Yeah. So keep going.
So COVID hits, and at a certain point, a lot of places decide that they're going to close schools, and a lot of public life kind of shut down. I worked in healthcare at the time. I was one of the first, we were required to be vaccinated as soon as there was a vaccine. I remember, masking early on. But somehow what happened for you when COVID really hit? What did you go along at first? Was it like, no?
Not
Okay.
1 second.
Okay.
I will say, some of the people that listen and watch your show, like I get a lot of messages from people who say, I'm totally down with you. I love the brand on the gender stuff, but your views on COVID, you're a whack job. And so some of the people watching this may really not like what I have to say here, but that's fine. I get people go the other way too, where like, I started following you during COVID and you're so mean about the trans people. Why are you such a bitch? So I don't know. To me, they're very related with the whole trust the experts, follow the science, when on the face of it, it doesn't make any sense at all. San Francisco was about as psycho as you could be on the COVID front. Everything closed on March. What's that?
Without being in China.
Yeah, exactly. Well, fair point. But the further lefty, the more blue some place was, the more closed it was. I mean, San Francisco's schools didn't open for 19 months. They were disrupted for 3 years, meaning all kinds of crazy rules in the schools. Playgrounds were closed for nearly a year. Playgrounds, outdoor playgrounds. And when you live in San Francisco, it doesn't matter if you have money or not. The only place kids can play is the playground. Nobody has a yard. People were arrested for surfing. You were required to not stray more than 1 mile from your home. You could be stopped on the street and asked for your ID so they could see your address. When they finally let us out of our homes, the parks, there were chalk circles in the park. You had to sit in those circles to maintain distance from people from other households. The first time we were allowed out, this is how crazy it was. I'm telling you all of this to just tell you how batshit crazy it was. First time, it was like July of 2020, and they were like, okay, you can go out now, but you have to stay within your own household. We're at threat level orange. You're not allowed to interact with other people, but you can go outside with people in your household. You weren't allowed to do that before. And we're out, and I have 4 children. So that's a big family in San Francisco. Nobody has 4 children. And 2 of them are mixed race, and 2 of them are whites. And so some crazy white lady.
I know exactly what you're going to say. Oh, God.
I saw her. She's standing there with her phone. I hate the Karen phrase, but she was a crazy Karen lady. And I said to my husband, she thinks we're not one household because we have too many kids and 2 of them are black and 2 are white. And 2 seconds later, the police showed up and we had to prove that we all lived in one household. That shit. These are the good people.
I will, tiny little segue. We have 2 black children, 2 white children, 1 biracial child. I was in Disneyland once walking with my smallest black child was within arm's distance of me, and some crazy white lady physically picked him up and ran with him. She thought there was a lost tiny little black child. And I'm like, where the fuck are you going with my kid? Like, you don't
the lady looking at, I was like, I know what you're doing, you crazy lady. I know what you're doing. The math here isn't hard to figure out how one lady could, it's like not that complicated. You're the nice, you're the liberal lady, progressive. Like, what are you doing? Anyway, I'll just say so we've been watching, you guys remember in February of 2020 is when all the reports from Italy were coming, right? And I became obsessed. I was reading the medical reports and I was like a woman with like an obsession. And the median age of death in Italy, where they were yelling at us that everybody was going to die and, everyone that comes across this is going to die. The median age of death was like 83. And I was like, okay, not everyone's going to die. That's impossible. The math does not make any sense. And it just didn't make sense to me from the very beginning. And my husband and I were frantic that they were going to shut the city down, which they did. And before they did, on March 13th, we were already resisting that. And, you know, I guess I would just say one thing. I mean, I think there were terrible lies told, terrible practices embedded. I mean, masking a 2-year-old in a Paw Patrol cloth mask with slobber all over it is not going to do anyone any good. Isolating teenagers for over a year, telling them to be online all the time, which, by the way, we saw the trans madness increase exponentially because you had depressed, lonely, isolated teenagers at home on a screen for 10 hours a day. What did we think would happen? You cannot treat kids like prisoners and think they're going to be okay. It wasn't anything that most of us needed to fear. But beyond that, it was the most egregious violation of our civil liberties in any of our lifetimes, probably our lifetimes and our parents. Gross, broad violation. I mean, I know there were Japanese internment camps. This was the entire world told to stay home. You cannot work. You cannot send your kids to school. Oh, neighbors, report on your neighbor if you see someone come into the house. People died alone. Women gave birth alone. And everybody just went along. Like, to my mind, there is no point at which something is dangerous enough that you can do that to the population. Sorry, because then it will be manufactured, the danger point. So you can make your own decisions. I still can't believe people, we're still dealing with the repercussions in the aftermath of this. Inflation is an aftermath of this. We were lied to, we were censored, we were forced into isolation, children were harmed. I'll never get over it. Never.
Would you have called yourself a liberal going into COVID?
Oh, 1,000%. I identified as left of center, probably pretty close to where you did.
As an executive, like, what is it that got you in the news, though? Because at a certain point, you're in the news for this, weren't you?
Yeah. I mean, think back, how many people, there were not that many people talking about this, you know? And so, you know, I started out arguing with like family members on Facebook, which is the last time I think I was on Facebook. And I realized very quickly that was just really unproductive. I mean, it all ended up being not that productive. So I switched to Twitter. I don't know why. Thinking, I don't know, maybe it would hurt less to be yelled at by people I didn't know. What I also learned on Twitter, which I'd had an account, but I didn't use it much at the time, you could, like, I would reach out to doctors. There were a few doctors who were dissenting. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who is now running the NIH and interim lead for the CDC. I would ask him questions about papers he'd written, studies he'd done, and he would answer me. So quickly on Twitter, now X, there was a group of, we called ourselves Open Schools Moms around the country, and we would talk. And most of us were Democrats, believe it or not, because the red state schools did open. So it was only moms in the blue states who had to push back and fight back. So we would share strategies, and we would, you know, oh, I had a rally this weekend. I got this many people. I had one, and they took my flyer down on Facebook, so no one showed up. Like, we would, you know, support each other. And we would try at a certain point to get included in some of these stories in mainstream press. You know, we were reaching out to NPR and New York Times, and they would never include our point of view. You know, blue state mom wants schools open.
Wow, this sounds familiar. Yes.
It's
yes.
the same.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. And then I moved to Denver in February 21. So my kids could go to school, because the schools here, even though it's blue state, were open. Jared Polis, who I don't love, was the best Democrat governor on COVID. And we came here so my kids could go to school. Work was closed. We were working virtually, so it was fine. I could live anywhere. And I tweeted about it, and it went sort of semi-viral. And then I was asked to be on the Laura Ingraham show, or whatever her show is called, the
Yep.
Ingraham Angle.
Okay.
And I said yes.
How dare you?
San Francisco. I know. You know what, Cori, I talked to all my open schools moms beforehand. I was like, should I do this? I don't even know who this woman is. I don't watch Fox News. Who's Laura Ingraham? I don't know anything about this lady. But it's a big show. I looked up the numbers, should I do it?
I mean,
And everybody
Laura
was like,
Ingraham
yes.
is notoriously very sweet. So, no.
Are you being sarcastic?
I know,
Oh,
she's
okay.
no. I was like, I think that's not true.
No.
But they love, you guys know this. They love, it's like we're red meat, a former lefty who sees the error of her ways and, finds the Democrat Party to be liars and, anti-child and censorious. I mean, they love it. It's like, and so I went on the show because all the moms were like, you have to do it. I mean, you have to. This is like a year in, and the San Francisco school board is like, nope, we're never opening. Nope. I mean, San Francisco in March, it was another like 7 months until the schools open. So I did it, and then all hell rained down on me. Before that, though, even in San Francisco, I was on local shows. People would chase me down the street to call me a murderer and a racist. I was a racist all the time. That's the best, is the racist, because I didn't care if Black children died, because I wanted the public schools to open where the Black children go. Again, they're always the ones that are the racists calling us racist. Fascist, Nazi. I mean, I had to leave. People were literally chasing me down the street when we
So
were
you went
allowed
on
out.
the show. Did you get fired? Is that what happened?
I resigned
You resigned. Okay.
a year later.
Under duress?
I resigned.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I did get promoted during this time. I went from chief marketing officer, which I was like, won all the prizes, 8 years as chief marketing officer, which is really long. Most people only last 2. And I got promoted to brand president in October of 2020, which is the job next in line for the CEO. It was just the entirety of corporate America came after me. It wasn't just peers. Like, it was, come get your girl posts all over the place from corporate leaders, from everyone. And, I guess I was viewed as a liability. And I didn't go back to San Francisco. I never went back. So I resigned.
So you resigned. How long was the gap before you opened XXXY?
Well, at first I just cried basically for 6 months.
Lauren, see, me crying maybe once every couple days.
Hours?
No, yeah.
Hours?
I mean,
every
I
couple
so
hours.
I relate to the, your story so much, Jamie, and I remember reading yours in the Free Press, which is where mine was also published before it was the Free Press. It was still just Barry's own Substack. It's like when you get divorced, right? You have to. It's time. But you grieve it nonetheless, because you've given up the entire future you thought that you had planned for yourself. I had been at the company 23 years. I had been in the city 35 years. I thought I would raise my 2 younger children there. I knew every nook and cranny of that city, of that brand, of that company. And it was hard. And no one talks to me. I knew it. I mean, these were not employees. These were my friends. 2 decades, funerals, weddings, births of children. My own friends outside of work, from college wouldn't talk to me anymore because I said the schools should open. And I should be clear, even though I was against all the restrictions, I only talked about children. and schools and, masking babies. Because I thought that was a bridge. Yeah, I thought no one wants to harm children. Ha. So I did mourn. I was terrified, I didn't know what I was going to do next. While mourning, I wrote a book, and then I started
decided to take on the next most contentious issue ever.
Well, yeah. So, there was a reason.
Oh, my newest phrase is going to be, "What would Jen Sey do?" It's really what would
the
Jen
most
Sey do?
fucked up, stupid thing you could do to make your life more difficult is what she would do. Well, I was already very hyper conscious of this issue, and in fact, when I was still working, I had commented from time to time. Like, do you remember in 2021? It's when it was all the rage that it wasn't Happy Mother's Day. You were supposed to say it was Happy Birthing Person's Day. Do you remember this? And all the senators and congresswomen were. You may not remember. It was like a trend, and they made all these videos. All the women in Congress. It's Birthing Person's Day. So I had said something about that, which just got me a good proper dragging, as you might imagine. So I was like, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. I'm in enough trouble with the kids and the schools stuff, so I'll just leave that to other people for now. But I started to interview by the end of 2022, and most recruiters that I'd known for years wouldn't take my calls. But one guy did, and I went through this whole interview process for a CEO job, and this is in early 2023. And the HR person on the board was the last interview, and her first question to me was, "Will you apologize for what you've done?" And I was like, I'm never getting another job again. Clearly.
Good for you.
What? I mean, no, but she really.
I think a lot of people would have been like, "Oh yeah, absolutely. I was really wrong. Sorry. So sorry. Please give me this job." But you didn't. I respect that.
Well, I had declined to bend a knee many times over the course of, my COVID dissenting. I had said no thank you to that option. And it just, by 2023, it was like, are you effing kidding me? I was right about everything. Now you want me to? And so what I was apologizing for in her mind was not that I was wrong and caused harm, but that I was disobedient.
Yeah.
No.
You can't be trusted because you have different tribal beliefs.
Yeah.
You get into a whole thing here, which I think is interesting. I think at the end of the day, I was a traitor to my class.
Yes.
I was a traitor to my class. I stood up and I said, while they were sending their children to private school in person for $60,000 a year, I stood up and said, what about the poor kids in public school? And I sent my own kids there. I violated the pact, which is we'll pretend to be these all social justice-y while we take what's ours. And you get to take it too if you do the thing, do the dance. And I didn't. I didn't know I was supposed to do that. And I don't like that. I'm not doing that.
Before you joined us for this segment, the last thing that the three of us were talking about is the idea of sacrifice. And this, I think, was one of the reasons why Jamie was a little verklempt. And I was making the point that when you decide to commit yourself to something, you are not doing it because you're expecting anything. You're not even necessarily expecting to win. You're making the commitment because it has to be done. And you give and you give and you give. And you might win, which is great. And if you do, you don't get anything from it. And in all probability, you'll lose. And in which case, you'll also not get anything from it. But that's the nature of sacrifice.
Well said.
So that,
yeah.
so
the thing
HR,
is,
but HR says to you, apologize, you refuse.
Yeah, basically the deal was you could have this job as the CEO of this big company, this $8 billion retailer. You could have it. Will you apologize for what you've done? And like, for what? What is she even talking about? But basically, will you prostrate yourself? Will you bend a knee? Will you say you were out of line? You weren't a doctor. You didn't know. You realize now the error of your ways. And I said, no fucking way. The irony is also all these corporatists, they pretend they want people to be bold and have
Right.
integrity. It's all just a big act. They don't, because the minute you actually do those things, you're supposed to play that person on TV, but you're not supposed to be that person because that's very uncomfortable. And
Well,
if
someone
you
with
refuse
integrity is uncontrollable.
right, we can't coerce them
Yeah.
into doing what we want.
You can't even bribe them with a good job because you're not going
You
to
can't
bend. Yeah.
bribe them with money.
Yeah.
And they don't understand your mode of thinking. You're very confusing to them because
Yeah.
they've all made the agreement. We will extract as much value for ourselves, money, from this company as we can. We will put employees last. We will take as much for ourselves, and all the better. If the ship is going down, that's a really good time to extract value. We're going to do that, but we're going to play like that we're now, since corporate wokeism has taken over, we're going to play that we're social justice warriors, which is ludicrous. No one chooses to go into corporate America to
Yeah.
it's like the dumbest thing on earth. You can behave with integrity, you can treat employees well, you can help people build careers, take care of their families, you can do all those things. That was my goal. But they don't understand your priorities. If you can't be bought with money, you're just completely confusing. And I don't remember how you said it, Lauren, but you're unsafe, you're uncontrollable. So there's no place for you.
Yeah. They can never get leverage over you.
Right.
Yeah.
Walk me though from, because I do feel like there is a certain level of camaraderie here between you and I over this. Even Lauren lost her whole business. I mean,
yeah.
How do you take that? You turned it into this brand.
Yeah. I just, after I had that series of interviews, and you have to keep in mind, it was like the 9th or 10th interview in a series of interviews, each of which lasted probably 2 hours. I'd already had to take like multiple IQ tests and a battery of emotional tests, because that's what they do if you're up for a CEO job. Like, I had put in 40 hours interviewing for this effing job already. So I come downstairs and I say to my husband,
Wait, so they give you psychological tests to make sure you're not crazy, and then they ask you to do something completely crazy to get the job. Okay.
Well, maybe they're not trying to make sure you're not crazy. Maybe they're trying to make sure you're compliant.
Yeah.
With the profile. Maybe that's what they're actually trying to make sure of, is that you're not too independent minded. So I came downstairs and I said to my husband, he stays home with our kids. I had 1 or 2 in college at the time. I mean, we had expenses, I was like, we need to find another way. I don't know what we're going to do, but I'm never getting another job in corporate America. Never. Literally never. It doesn't matter if the whole world does a mea culpa for COVID. I'm still not getting a job.
At least you knew that and you took action. At least you were like, fuck it. Let's do my own thing.
Well,
so yeah,
how is that born now? How is the brand born?
There were a few things that happened. I was doing a reading of my book at someone hosted it for me. I don't know that many people here. And honestly, I'm pretty gun shy about meeting people. Like, I don't really trust people very much. So I haven't done a lot to make friends on purpose. But anyway, I started chatting with this couple that was at the event, and they had a lot of money. And they were very interested in consumer brands and starting one of their own that pushed back on, sorry, I keep using the word woke. It's such a handy shortcut, but the sort of woke excesses in the fashion, clothing, like basically consumer brands, had been excessively woke for years, and they were sort of center right conservatives, and they felt unwelcome. They felt like, what am I don't want to buy from a brand that hates me.
Yeah.
And I get that. I understand that. Why would you want to? And there had been a few, high profile examples here in Colorado. There's a very large clothing company here. It's called VF, and they own the North Face and Vans and Timberland. And there had been a few high profile examples of their craziness. And so we just started talking, and then I thought, well, I could do that. And he invited me. I said, well, let's keep talking. So he said, well, we have this idea. Why don't you come into the offices and we'll show you our idea for a clothing brand? Because we've had this idea and we just didn't have anyone to run it. So I went in and I was like, well, I like the idea of a brand that pushes back on the excesses, but this idea you have is really quite bad. So
okay.
will you allow me, will you give me 6 weeks to come up with an idea? Because I think you're onto something, but you need to put this in a drawer. This is no good. And I came up with this.
How? Where was it born from? Did you wake up one morning and you're like, this is it?
Such a good question. I mean, I didn't do it alone. I have a friend who's now our creative director, and we started talking about it. His name is Brett Craig, and he's amazing. And what was the light bulb? I mean, I was interested in the athletic clothing space because of my athletic background. And it's also just on a practical level, the only sort of fast growing segment of
that's true.
The clothing industry. So just from a practical standpoint, it's like, well, I'm going to make clothes in a category that people want to wear. I started it as XX athletics, thinking just women. This is all the boring practical stuff. There's a lot of brands that use XX, Dos Equis. Like you literally couldn't trademark that as a name. So I was like, well, we can't do that. And I wanted to include men. And I just came up with it with Brett. We did it together, XXXY. It's a statement of truth. It's just a simple statement of fact. That's it. And we liked the idea that it was a statement of fact. It looked cool. We thought it looked cool. So when we solve this issue together, we can move on to other things. And it's still a cool looking logo, a statement of fact. We'll have proven our bona fides that we are willing to stand up for female athletes no matter what. And we'll be the only brand that actually stands in the breach for female athletes. Because the other thing that led me down the path, Jamie, is I really despise Nike. They treat women with such astonishing disregard and yet make so much money off of pretending to champion female athletes. So that was in my craw. I mean, there's been so many high profile instances of how poorly they treat women, from abusing an athlete in their running program, which has been shut down, to within an inch of her life, to, not paying pregnant athletes, to sexually harassing female executives. Like, they are the epitome of woke corporatism.
Oh, I actually think I was protesting Nike like in high school over some sweatshop labor.
Well, I don't even get me started on the Chinese sweatshop.
Yes. Speaking of I'm going to do the worst segue ever here. Speaking of how you added the XY,
we're about to drop ours.
We're going to lose ours in a moment.
Cori's got to go.
Oh, I was like, is that in your name? I don't understand. I was confused.
No, okay,
Cori has to go. So Cori can ask a question. Do you have a question? No.
Well, I do have a question. Will you come back and talk to us more?
I would love that. I love you guys.
All right, then I'll ask the rest of my questions when I have that opportunity. It was
amazing.
Fantastic seeing you and catching up with you.
Nice to see you too.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, Cori.
So I'm wondering.
That was good, Jamie. That was a good segue. That was well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
No, it
confused.
wasn't.
Very,
It
very
landed
clever.
like a brick.
Very clever. I got
Okay,
what you were.
this is what I'm thinking we do right now. So, Jen, today we were going to do our first segment with a journalist from Outkick. Are you familiar with that?
I
Okay.
know Outkick very well. Who are you talking to?
Okay, now you're going to put me on the spot and I'm going to forget his name and I'm going to, okay.
Dan
Yes.
Zakrzewski.
Yeah.
He's great.
Okay,
You'll like
so
Dan.
we were going to bring him back next week.
Okay.
I'm wondering, we've gotten up to the point where XXXY launches. I think we save the brand, the athletes,
Great.
the girls that you work with, everything
Terrific.
else for a part two,
Terrific.
where we bring you back because I also want to get into not only that the brand launches, but you are doing programming as well with a lot of these athletes and girls. And the other thing we need to, I think, get back into and circle back onto is where we should be in safety for girls athletes and where we are now because of trans.
Yeah,
Okay.
great questions.
Okay. So
I think the
let's
other
do this.
interesting thing, which you've heard me talk about, which we can talk about, is one of and the reason I would never, you're a whistleblower. I certainly am not, but I certainly have put myself in a precarious position. But as I observed this movement of truth and bravery, no one was tackling it from the cultural perspective. And so I
Exactly.
felt like I had a unique skill set that could help in that regard. And we're idiots if we think that's not necessary. We're idiots if we think that we can only come after it through legislation and politics. If we don't change the culture, think about it. When the Civil Rights Act passed, did racism end? No, it's the same thing. We need to change the cultural conversation, and the left is really good at this. And we are typically, I don't really still call myself a conservative, but we, the non-far left crazy people, we've ceded the culture to them, and they're good at it.
And there's another aspect of that for the culture too, which is that I've always said you can't just be in opposition to something. You have to give people something to be for.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
pride, to want, and that's part of what a brand is too. And that I want, because I'm for something. I'm not just opposed to these things. This is what I'm for. These are my values and what that
Good way to
means.
put it. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So,
Yeah.
so let's do this. Let's wrap.
Okay. Can I ask you one question? What do you like the first time I'm just curious, what do you consider yourself now politically? What do you call yourself?
Oh, God.
I would say I'm a classic liberal. But even that, I think that
Isn't
is
quite.
yeah, that doesn't quite do it. I mean, I've always been pretty independent minded, and I'm of a working class background, so I've always been very suspicious of both parties because I don't often see anything happening that improves the lives of the working class from
Yeah.
either side.
Yeah.
So I've kind of grew up and matured in a environment where like I was always questioning like, well, how does this help me? How is this good for me? So I don't have any particular party loyalties anymore. I would really love for us to just start having non-crazy conversations in this country, like real
Okay.
yeah, like really start affecting some real change for people because, it's not the America that my parents grew up in. Like your kids don't have more opportunity than you do.
No.
It's not affordable for most people to buy a house or raise a family or, but I mean, groceries are out of control. So I don't really have I wouldn't call myself of either political party.
Yeah.
And right now I'm a one issue person, right? Because I can't afford to have opinions on everything else. I just want to stop what's going on there. Yeah. Jamie.
I'm a heartbroken, disaffected Democrat.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, I
with
feel like the first time I heard you speak, and I don't even think we met, you said it was in Colorado. I don't know if it was Jen's Becht. You were
Oh,
talking.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you said, I'm not giving up on the left. And I was like 3 years from having given up. I was like, I'm giving up on that. I'm not disaffected anymore. I mean, I am a disaffected former lefty, but I don't have any hope for them. Yeah, I have no hope for them. I also don't care if you call me a conservative, even though I don't consider myself one. Like I do think there's power in that once you don't care. You think
Yes.
it's my feelings that you call me a Republican? Like that's so stupid. Why would that doesn't hurt my feelings?
Yeah, it's stupid.
But in San Francisco, being called a Republican is like basically a curse word.
Yeah. I would just be really happy if we could get back to two sane parties. I would love to see a new party in our country. I don't know that that's possible in our current political system, but I do think it's really dangerous when so many people are disaffecting from the left
Yeah.
and they're not embracing the right? Like they're just like, I have nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
So like that doesn't inspire a lot of, faith either. When you're like,
Uh-huh.
I'm just here by default,
Yeah.
you know? I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, I hear
Kind of a
you.
mess.
I'm always interested in talking with the disaffected lefties, as you put it, Jamie, or politically homeless, or all the things we call ourselves. And like you, I'm welcomed into very conservative
Yeah.
circles.
I don't even know what the party positions are anymore. If you went down a list, this is why I struggle when I do talk to, liberals still. Am I for the death penalty? No. Am I for universal health care, not insurance? Yes. Do I think that everyone has the right to basic medical care? Yes. I mean, like, I have these positions.
Yeah.
Am I primarily anti-military and war? Yeah, if you go through this kind of list, like, I don't know which party that lines up with anymore. Am I pro-gay marriage? Absolutely. Am I, so I think it's challenging. Do I consider myself, um, do I want safe regulations around our environment? Um, yes. Am I normally pro basic regulations? Yes. I don't know what that makes me.
Yeah.
Did I want the schools to be open? Yes. Does it bother me that I send my kid to public schools, my kids to public schools? Do I want those to be functional, good, well-funded places? Yes. What does that make me? I don't know what that is anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you. But I vote on one thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and as much as I always say, the thing I marched about since I was young, I worked at Now when I was in college. I went to DC and worked at the National Now and the summers interning. Like I marched for choice forever. And now I'm also just like, okay, you guys have lost your minds on that. Like I can't even be fully on board with that anymore. And I'm willing to just not care as much about it for whatever reason. So anyway, I mean, it's just so basic. I feel like the most basic thing in the world that there are men and there are women and everybody fucking knows it. If you can't stand up and say that, you cannot be trusted on anything, and you are going to mask a toddler till she is speech delayed beyond recognition, and you're gonna make old people touch behind the plastic glass in the final minutes of their life, and you're just cretinous evil. I can't do it. Anyway, you let me know when you want to come back. Nice
Thank
to
you
see
so
you,
much for
ladies.
your time today.
You got it.
Yeah, it was
Great.
great talking to you.
It's my favorites. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks,
Bye.
Jen.
Thank you so much for being with us today. We know that was a longer episode with Jen Sey, but I hope you found that conversation really worthwhile. She is amazing. Before we fully close, I want to return to the breaking news out of the United Kingdom. The government-backed Pathways puberty blocker trial has now been paused after a regulatory agency has raised new concern about safety and launched a further review. Regulators were citing the young age of participants and concerns about those participants' long-term impacts on their fertility. The agency has asked researchers to raise the minimum age for participation. This trial had planned to recruit children as young as 10 to receive puberty-suppressing drugs. Treatments restricted to research settings in the UK because of the uncertainty about their safety and long-term effects. They were asking these young participants to consider fertility preservation before these interventions, raising serious concerns about ethics and about informed consent and risk. For years, clinicians, researchers, parents, and advocates have warned that this pathway, from social transition to puberty blockers to cross-sex hormones, is a sterilizing pathway for children. We have said that children cannot meaningfully consent to an intervention that will permanently impact their long-term fertility, their bodies, or their healthy futures. We are now seeing that these concerns are no longer being outright dismissed. If anything, this pause shows that those concerns are now at least being recognized. It's also been clear to many for a long time that this original concept was deeply flawed at its inception and should never have been pursued. Moments like this remind us that change happens through shared efforts. We are in this work globally together, and some will pick up the torch and carry it a few inches forward, and some will pick it up for a very brief period of time and find that they have to set it down. And others can step up and continue the work. That's how progress, as we used to think of it, happens. I care deeply about so many people in this fight and about people that I work together every single day. First, to clarify, today's conversation did not mean that Cori is leaving this podcast, but like many who work in this area, there are seasons where people must change the intensity of their contributions. Maybe they no longer testify anymore. Maybe they slow down their Substack writing. And sometimes people will find that they cannot carry this torch at all. Some just can't run anymore. I cried. I'm sorry. I cried at the end of that segment. I cried hearing Lauren explain her endpoint, her vision for society. But I also cried thinking about so many of those who carried that torch, whose names I just want remembered. I also want to recognize the clinicians, the journalists, the parents, and the advocates who have been working tirelessly in the UK to bring attention to the risks, the ethics, and the evidence surrounding this study. So let's reach out and say thank you to them. Even if we can't remember all of their names, maybe this is a time where we start to consider how do we remember how this movement began and flowed, and who was the torchbearer, and why and when. That conversation with Jen Sey also brought back that sometimes people will have to pick up the torch again and again and again and run with it, often at great personal cost. She is one of those people. Her work also reminds me that change happens through so many different avenues, through sport, but then through business, through her writing books, through speaking up, saying yes to go on an interview with somebody you don't even know who you're going to be speaking to, and just willing to speak when you know it's going to be difficult. She also showed us that there's many pathways to creating change, and that there are going to be periods in people's lives where they pick up the torch and run, and then, like she said, where they pause and cry for 6 months. So hopefully my crying is out for today. We won't need a 6-month pause for that, but this is hard work. We see it, we recognize it, and we like to share this conversation with you each and every week. So please subscribe, share, and as always, stay informed and ready to dissent.